All right, gentlemen and gentlewomen, boys and girls, back to Greenland. Since my colleague in Germany planted the seed of needing to think more about Greenland, I have been thinking more about Greenland. And I've come to the conclusion, as a tentative way of looking at it, that Greenland, geographically, because of its scale, where it is, as well as whatever content there is in terms of mineral resources or what have you, is the cornerstone of a new world order, geographically, geostrategically. And we need to have it in place so that this larger order can be built. The larger order is vastly more important than Greenland, and the Greenlanders are not in any way fooled by this. But their position is simply enormously important, particularly for us here in Europe and for our allies in Canada. We must make this work. But the interesting thing is that tactically, seeing off the threat from other places is less important than the structure, the architecture that can be built, the global architecture that can be built when we have sorted this problem. Now, let's look at Greenland in just a couple of ways here to begin the discussion. First of all, where it is means that we need to have Greenland, first of all, as a safe geopolitical space for Canada and Northern Europe. We need to be able to fly over it. We need to be able to invest and help and sustain life there. These are, in some important sense, our people, not anybody else's. And I think the whole relationship with Canada, which is because the United States has wandered off elsewhere, Canada is our North American anchor, and the only addition that occurs to me obviously is Mexico. But in the meantime, we must make and help the Canadians sort this out because they can do so much for us. So the transatlantic northern relationship is consistently geographically in three pieces. Western Europe, with particular emphasis on Iceland, the Scandinavians, and to an extent Finland. Britain, if it wants to play. Then there's Greenland in between, and then there's Canada. And that's an arc. And that arc must be ours. So that's the beginning structure. When that is sorted, then all kinds of possibilities arise. And this is the difference between the ambition, say, of the Trump administration for the mineral resources or some kind of strategic advantage that they talk about loosely. I mean, the real point of, as I've said earlier, the point of taking Greenland from Denmark by force or otherwise is to break the will of the European Union. And this we cannot have. Nationalist dissenters in Britain and Germany and France simply have misread the geopolitical reality of our time. They are not helping. They are helping our enemies. And there's going to be a comeuppance about this because we simply will not allow this to happen. These people have understandable feelings about the thing, but they are wrong, and we need to engage them to show them that it's wrong. But if Trump sends the armed forces into Greenland, then they will see the problem. We have to deal with Putin and Trump at the same time. We cannot have a house divided. And the fact that the situation may have improved in Hungary and maybe not improving in Slovenia now, this is, the European mosaic is always a complicated business. I think the technical English political scientific term is mess. But having agreed that it's a mess, we have to sort it. So, Greenland. One is the geographical thing, the veritable arc on the map. There is the question of the mineral resources and the closing of the Hormuz Straits and the problem with the oil supplies from Russia all indicate that Europe has to be, to the degree it's possible, self-sufficient. Now, during this emergency, French nuclear-generated electricity has been used in the grid outside France. Apparently, the Danes have come to the aid of the Germans. We're doing this together. But that's a temporary emergency. We need structural change. We need to be less dependent on the outside. And why less dependent? So we can do our own thing? No, so that we can become a loyal, productive, calm part of this larger world order. And what we're looking for is putting our own house in order so we can find other people who put their house in order so we can have a house in order, a global house in order that does not depend on who is in the White House, or for that matter, who is in the Kremlin. Clear? Clear. Good. This is where we want to go. So the mineral resources, to the degree that they are there, are for that matter in Ukraine. We want that war settled in such a way that the Ukrainian national territory is integral. No concessions. And that includes those resources. It includes those resources. Is Ukrainian part of Europe now? Ukraine has bled its way into the European Union. It will be one of our most resilient, clear-thinking members, also large, because it's not confused about the dangers of the world. There's some people in France and some people in Britain and some people in the old East Germany who are confused about where they are living. Ukrainians are not confused, whatever their limitations. That's another thing. So, Greenland, resources, geographic position. Also, finally, and this is partly symbolic, partly diplomatic, partly a matter of will. When Trump began to threaten Denmark, and the attitude of the Europeans, to the degree that I could follow it, was that we would rally to defend, then some interesting speculation followed. Not speculation, assessment. We had some Swedes involved in special operations, winter operations. And the Swedes are good at this. The Norwegians are good at this. The Finns are good at this. They have to be. And their assessment was that the Americans were going to have the most terrible trouble if they attempted to, 10,000 troops, the standard figure in these circumstances, because of the sheer difficulty of the terrain, the logistics. Americans are, by reputation, really, really good with logistics supply with military operations. But this would be another deal altogether. The weather is murderous, and you're dealing with, if you wanted to replay, not to be bad here, but the 1940 Finnish-Russian War, where the Finns gave the Russians the most terrible time, is a warning. Now, we have not to put this to the test, but we have to be able to say, look at, clearly, you guys don't want to do this because it's a hiding to nothing. And that means that standing with Denmark is not just symbolic. It's proving that we have some muscle. And if we don't have the muscle, we'll develop the muscle. But the will must be there. Now, I said jokingly, an American friend in Tokyo who listened to all of this and said, despite his antiquity like me, he said, where can I go? Which Danish embassy do I go to sign up to offer my assistance? Now, that's the spirit of the thing. To stand with the Danes and the Greenlanders because it's important. And the anti-war demonstrations in Paris, I understand that, and this is, all kinds of reasons why it exists, and there's some really good reasons why it exists, but these anti-war protesters must understand that sometimes one must stand firm, and that firm ground about which we need to stand firm is called Greenland.